The hectic festival finally came to an end, however. Even after the festival ended, its aftermath remained like burning embers. It was daytime and the students were heading towards the academy. Among them there were 3 boys. One of them asked his friends if it was true that the night bloodhound had come to the academy during the festival. The boy wearing glasses turned his head towards his friends, and with a serious gaze revealed that he had heard that the night bloodhound had come to commit another attack. The blonde-haired boy began to observe his friend, and with a sincere expression said that according to rumors the teachers had intervened to stop the night hound. Upon hearing this, the black-haired student's eyes widened with disdain and fear. According to him, the night hound was someone evil who deserved to be immediately locked up in prison. Then, he closed his eyes, extended his hands and mentioned that it was said that this time a new villain had also appeared, an unregistered black mage. With a sincere gaze, the boy wearing glasses turned towards them and explained that he had heard that the 2 villains fought each other, and thanks to that, the teachers were able to stop them quickly. The blonde-haired boy began to observe his friends in silence, without interrupting. The 3 friends continued talking among themselves with smiles on their faces, and passed near the wall that had been destroyed by Vikar's attack. The students, unaware of anything, chatted happily with carefree voices. The night bloodhound incident, which could have ended in a terrifying tragedy if it hadn't been contained, seemed to fade away like a simple and chilling rumor. The students entered the academy and began heading toward their classrooms. Somewhere down the hallway there was a door. It was the journalism club. Inside were all the members of the club sitting around a table that was full of newspapers. Dollars stood up, placed her hand on top of the table, and with an angry expression demanded to know who had written this article. Vikar and the others began to observe the articles in silence. Among the articles, there was one with a photograph of the night bloodhound with eyes shining with evil and covered in blood stains. The article was about the atrocities of the night hound. His misdeeds had surpassed all limits since he had attacked the Imperial Academy, according to the person who had written the article. The acts of the night hound were premeditated, so he was considered anti-humanitarian and anti-state, a villain that must be punished without fail. During the festival, among the main facilities destroyed in the Imperial Capital War, the Imperial Bank, the Capital Clock Tower, the Indulgentia Orphanage, and the Imperial National Cemetery, Dollars took hold of the article with her hand, and while her eyes were shining with rage, she began to stare at Vikar and at everyone else, making it clear that even though Night Hound had come to the festival, he had not caused any commotion. Chaos had been caused by that mysterious black mage. Everyone's attention was fixed on Dollars and their eyes widened in surprise and confusion, while on the other hand, our boy showed no emotion. Dollars had read the article, and according to her it seemed as if the Night Hound had come to the festival to massacre the students, and even though she knew that he was a criminal according to the laws of the Empire, she was certain that that day during the festival he had done nothing out of the ordinary. According to her, the article should focus more on facts and less on emotions, simply listing the facts. She demanded to know who had written this article. With a nervous gaze, Piggy began shaking his hands in denial. Tutor's attention focused on Piggy and his eyes expanded with fear and panic. He did not know what to say. While on the other hand, with a calm expression, our boy began observing the articles in silence. Dollar's attention was fixed on Vikar and her eyes began to shine with seriousness upon realizing that the person who had written the article was him. Vikar argued that he had written the article according to the instructions of Professor Venci Morg, the club's advisor. Dollars placed her hands on the table and felt furious, since all this had happened while she was not present. Vikar began to observe her with a serene expression and remembered that she had been busy during the festival season with her student council duties. Upon hearing this, her eyes began to shine with confusion. She put her hands into the pocket of her pants, and while taking something out, let out a sigh and explained that if she was not present it did not mean that they should write an article without verifying the facts. She took out 3 articles that she had in her pocket and left them on top of the table, placed her hand on top of them, revealing that they were official statements issued this morning by the Imperial Guard. They assured that the one responsible for destroying the main facilities of the capital had not been Nightblood Hound. She took 3 photographs of the facilities where the Nightblood Hound had been. It was night and everything was destroyed, but there were strange marks on the ground. She knew that the main weapon of the Nightblood Hound was a sword. But upon observing the recent scenes of the attacks, there were almost no sword marks. Only traces remained as if a gigantic snake had crawled through the place. She began to imagine a woman holding a whip and surrounded by a white snake with purple eyes. She revealed that the official name of this villain was Ms. Al-Rabaraz, a creature whose gender identity was presumed female. The motive for the attack was unknown. It was estimated that she had the same level as a graduator, and the weapon she used had not been revealed. She revealed that all witnesses were dead. Upon hearing this, Tudor's and Sancho's eyes widened in surprise and fear, putting them on alert. Dollars, who had one hand resting on the table, began to show 3 fingers with the other, and while her eyes were shining with seriousness, she started to stare at Vakar and asked him not to keep blaming all the evil deeds on the Nightblood Hound. There were 3 villains, so they should clearly distinguish the crimes committed by each one. With a serene expression, Vakar did not say a single word, until several seconds later, he nodded his head. Actually, this did not matter much to him since he was criticizing the Nighthound in case someone suspected him in the future. He was just trying to create an antagonistic image between them. Tudor crossed his hands, rested his head on them, and while his eyes were shining with curiosity and fear, he could not help but wonder where the new villain Ms. Ouroboros had come from. Sancho crossed his arms, and with a serene gaze mentioned that the only thing they knew about her was that she left marks that looked like a giant snake had passed through there. With a surprised gaze, Sinclair raised her hand and asked how they were sure that she was a woman. Dollars placed her hands on top of the table, and with a serious expression began to imagine a rock with a lipstick mark, revealing that in all her crime scenes there was a lipstick mark. Realizing that she wanted everyone to know that she had been the one who had committed them, Piggy extended his hands to the sides and his eyes began to shine with confusion. Tudor started to show a finger and everyone began to chat among themselves. Vikar, who was sitting among them, began to look at the ground in silence. Vikar's attention was fixed on Dollars and his eyes began to shine with rage. He did not know if the new villain idolized or felt resentment towards the Nighthound. But he did not care what her objective was since he would have to eliminate her if she crossed his path during his demon hunt. At that moment, Anna, who was holding a pile of papers, kicked open the door and announced her arrival. She approached the table and left the papers on top. Dollar's attention was fixed on them and her eyes filled with confusion because she did not know what all these documents were. With a sincere gaze, Anna explained that they had received a lot of reports after the festival concluded. She took out a letter, approached Vikar and revealed that there was also a letter for him. Vikar began to look towards the ground and with a calm expression, extended his hand to take the letter and thanked her. Vikar took the letter and opened it. His eyes filled with confusion upon seeing that this letter was for him. Upon reading the content of the letter, Vikar's eyes widened in surprise, making him panic. While he was distracted reading the letter silently, Sinclair approached him and her attention fixed on the letter. She felt curious to know what it contained. The letter was a notice of payment for the first semester tuition. The next day, Vikar went to visit his brother and the little Pomeranian sat on his knees. She closed her eyes and could not help but smile and feel happy. Osiris mentioned that he could provide him with the money for his tuition. Osiris, who was sitting on the sofa in front of Vikar, picked up a cup of tea and while the sun rays were entering the room, asked what was really bothering Vikar. Our boy started to gaze towards the floor and sank into his thoughts, then began to pet the head of the little Pomeranian, and with a sincere expression said that he wanted to hide that he was a Baskerville while at the academy. Feeling that Vikar was petting her, Pomeranian placed her hands on top of Vikar's hands and could not help but feel even happier. The reality was that Vikar did not want his daily life to become complicated after it was discovered that he used the Baskervilles' money. He began to imagine Sinclair, Bianca, and Dolores offering him disguises with a loving gaze. He knew he only had 1 week until the enrollment deadline, but he did not want to take on any of the jobs that the girls had suggested. Vikar closed his eyes and felt worried since not receiving the full scholarship due to his behavior had caused him problems. Osiris prepared to take a sip of tea and his attention focused on Vikar. His eyes widened with curiosity since he wondered why Vikar was trying so hard to hide his skills. But then his mind was filled with surprise as a realization came to his mind. He could not help but wonder if Vikar wished to become the powerful hero who hid his strength. In the past, while the children were playing, little Osiris crossed his arms and stood in front of a tree. He began to blush imagining himself defeating a horde of monsters. There was a time when he also longed to be someone like that, hiding his strength and living among the weak before revealing his true power at the right moment. In a matter of seconds, the little Pomerian fell asleep like a log. With a calm expression, Osiris suggested to our boy the idea of dedicating himself to monster hunting part-time. Vikar's attention fixed on his brother and his eyes widened in surprise. Osiris suggested going to the Explorers Guild and hiring an explorer to go hunt monsters with him. He was willing to give our boy more opportunities to make his dream come true. With a confused gaze, Vikar began touching his chin since he didn't know if that would help him make his dream come true. With a serious gaze, Vikar sank into his thoughts. Thinking about the Explorers Guild, he remembered that there was an explorer who interested him. He began to imagine a swordsman with a ponytail. He was one of the heroes who had made a great contribution to the human coalition when the era of ruin arrived. Most of the field guides on demonic creatures that he knew had been created thanks to him. Later, the School of Monster Sonography had also been based on his research. Vikar remembered his tragic death, knowing that this guy was a country bumpkin who was not affiliated with anyone. During a battle with demons, he had no one to support him, which led to his premature death. Our boy knew a lot about him. A smile appeared on his face when he thought that he should earn this guy's trust while he was alive for the sake of the future. He thanked his brother and decided to do so. Upon hearing this, Osiris' eyes filled with joy and he could not help but feel happy. Somewhere in the city was the guide guild called Sherpa. It was starting to get dark and someone announced that the guild master was back. One of the men asked how today's hunt had been. The guild master stomped on the ground forcefully, making the men's jaws drop in surprise. The guild master, a blond man, carried on his back the body of a giant boar. He began to point at the boar with his thumb, and while his eyes were shining with confidence, he began to show a smile and said that the hunt had been a complete success. This guy was called Miniature Pinscher Aka Mini Pin. He left the boar's body on the ground and people approached to see the beast. They had no doubt that the graduates were on another level. Mini Pin started to move towards the guild door and decided to take a break. He entered his office, sat down and started reading a book. Mini Pin rested his head on the table, started touching his head with his hand and felt worried, since they were in trouble again this month. He did not have enough money to cover their food expenses and the salaries of the guild members. His eyes filled with worry and sadness since due to the large guilds of mercenaries, he could not do what he wanted, and it was normal that he was so distressed for not having support. He stood up, knowing that it was all his fault, since if he had not been scammed when he was young while trying to pursue his dream, now he would not be struggling financially. He opened a drawer which contained a towel. Mini Pin grabbed the towel and felt like an idiot, closing his eyes. He wiped the sweat from his face. If there was still an opportunity, he wanted to pursue his dream. He intertwined his hands and began to imagine the symbol of the Baskerville family. His dream was to enter the Baskerville family. At that moment, someone wearing brown boots began to walk through the area. This person wore a hood. He approached the body of the boar and asked if anyone knew where Mini Pin was. Upon hearing this, the attention of the men focused on him. With a serious gaze, the man approached the hooded man and noticed that this guy was young. He asked how someone like him dared to say their guild master's name so casually. The hooded man said that he was just a client who had come to make a commission. Upon hearing this, the other man asked if he believed that clients could act as if they were superior. Without wasting another second, the hooded man turned his back on him and walked away thinking that this guy was very annoying. Seeing this, the blond man's eyes widened in surprise. With a furious gaze, he turned around and tried to grab him. But at that moment, the hooded person moved like thunder and shifted away, leaving the man in shock. He and his men tried to catch the hooded man. But with a murderous gaze, the man moved quickly, avoiding being caught. Then, he took momentum and made a jump, until he appeared right in front of the guildmaster's office window. Upon feeling this, Minnie Pin's eyes, who had his hands intertwined, were filled with surprise. The hooded man stood at the window and asked if this was the guildmaster's room. Judging by Minnie Pin's build, he realized that he was the guildmaster. Upon hearing this, Minnie Pin's eyes widened in confusion. He stood up, clenched his fist, and with a confused gaze demanded to know who he was. The hooded man sat on the window and revealed that he was a client who had come to make a commission. Minnie Pin's face filled with sweat and his jaw dropped in surprise. The man got down from the window, approached Minnie Pin, took out a sheet and revealed that it was his commission request. Minnie Pin's attention fixed on him and he could not help but go on alert, realizing that this guy was fast. He was so fast that he had not had time to react, realizing that he was someone very skilled. Minnie Pin took the commission request and began to read carefully, but made it clear that he could not come here without making an official request. But then his eyes widened in surprise, leaving him in shock. The hooded man began to remove his hood and revealed that the guide he wanted to hire was Minnie Pin. Upon hearing this, the guild master's body began to tremble. The hooded man could not forget the famous person who visited endlessly the Baskerville family because he wanted to become a vassal. Minnie Pin's face filled with sweat and his eyes filled with fear. The hooded person was none other than Vikir. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,